Hello, thank you for listening to the NextGen Planners podcast. Just a note to add before this episode to give you some extra context. This episode of the podcast was recorded as part of our massive CPD Light Year in a Day event. This was where NextGen Planners ran 11 streams of content for 7 hours in each stream. We had a whole host of fabulous guests, and we can't wait for you to hear these brilliant conversations. Enjoy.
Welcome to the NextGen Planners podcast. NextGen Planners is a financial planning community with a supportive membership that strives for inclusion and best practice throughout our profession and the industry. This podcast is designed to support your always learning mentality by gathering insights from inside and outside of financial services. So, sit back and enjoy.
We are doing our NextGen Planners podcast episode. I am with the brilliant co-founder of Etcho, Charlie French, to talk about the impact of storytelling, the power of personal connection in impact investing. Welcome, Charlie.
Hi, Amelia. Thanks very much for having me. Real pleasure to be here.
Of course, thank you. So to kick things off then, what we like to ask our podcast guests is to just say, or, you know, it might be many different things to say, what does a day in your life, in the life of Charlie French at Etcho, look like?
Yeah, so a day in my life, so I've got a 2-year-old daughter, so my days often start a little bit earlier than I perhaps would like. But I guess I always try to start the day with doing some sort of exercise of some sort, and then we're hybrid, so we kind of work remotely. We do also work in sort of like WeWork type places, and basically we're quite a small team, and at Etcho, just to give you a bit of a background of who we are, we're sort of on a mission to seamlessly connect wealth with values. We've been on a bit of a journey since we started that. We started it probably about 18 months ago, but me and my brother-in-law started it, and we've had the idea now for a few years. And we've actually changed what we kind of initially set out to achieve. So initially we were like a B2C product, and now we've kind of pivoted from that. So actually what that means is that we spend a lot of our time I spend a lot of my time within the product team and working with the product team on how we can kind of best sort of build out our product and our tools to help financial advisors to kind of help tell stories, help build portfolios that their clients really connect to and really care about. And so I mean, I guess being a co-founder, you end up doing sort of a lot of different things each day, which is great. And really, you're sort of a jack of all trades type thing. One day you're doing sales and marketing, the next you're sort of deep in the products. But at the moment, we're really refining our products and we're really sort of building them out. So I'm spending a lot of time with the product team, listening to what our sort of early adopters and customers are saying to us and those pain points and how we can best sort of solve them. And so, I think that's kind of where majority of my time is spent, and each day is completely different, really, at Etcho, which is really exciting and really great.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really interesting, especially kind of building something from scratch. That whole process of identifying an issue or a problem that you see and trying to find something to help alleviate those issues. So to kind of get in with this conversation then is we're going to be talking about kind of investing sustainably and looking at that landscape. First off, what do you see as the main barriers to that for people wanting to kind of invest sustainably?
Yeah, so I think there's a few barriers to people wanting to invest sustainably. I think to be honest with you, I think a big one is maybe a lack of awareness from the clients in terms of understanding that their finances can actually have an impact on kind of sustainability and what they care about. So there's a couple of stats that really stand out to me. So the ONS, Office for National Statistics, found that actually over 80% of people have made a lifestyle change due to climate change, feeling anxious about climate change. So then when you consider the research by Make My Money Matter, that actually switching to a greener pension can reduce your carbon footprint 21 times more than many lifestyle changes combined. So that's like going veggie, giving up flying, switching energy provider, all of those combined, switching pensions 21 times more effective at cutting your carbon footprint. So when you really kind of boil that down, you sort of wonder whether people really understand actually how much of an impact their investments could have and whether that awareness is there. So I think one of the barriers really is around that sort of awareness, which potentially comes through in education, and education potentially on both sides. Obviously on the clients, but also on the advice side as well. It's a very complex subject, and I think sometimes people are maybe scared to approach the subject. People feel very emotional about it. It's an emotionally charged area, and so I think there's those sort of problems around the sort of barriers. I think also there's a lack of tools that kind of do it in an engaging way. It can be like kind of easy to switch off from what's kind of being shown to you. And I think what plays into it as well is sort of maybe a lack of sort of motivation around the narrative. I think so. I've read a few kind of books. There's Project Drawdown, for example, which is a really great organisation trying to change the narrative on climate change, and actually like trying to provide a bit of hope. And I think actually potentially people kind of feel like there's such a mountain to climb that actually they kind of forget that there is actually solutions out there. And I think potentially that sort of doom narrative is a barrier as well to people kind of feeling that they can't take action. But I think, awareness is a big one. Education and tools are the sort of barriers. I think, data also is in its sort of infancy and it is improving all the time. But I think that's also maybe a reason people feel sort of hesitant to go into it so much. But I think the appetite is certainly there. It's just there are definitely barriers.
Yeah, I mean, I would not have get 80%. Was it people who made a change to their lifestyle? Some
sort of lifestyle change due to the climate crisis. Or feeling anxious about it. So it's a lot of people are making the changes, and when you consider the financial, their investments or their pensions or whatever that may be, it really makes you wonder whether actually they have considered it, or whether there's something, or if there's a duty for people to actually start maybe telling the story of what can be done in your finances, because people are starting to feel anxious about this space. Climate change is anxiety inducing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, I think there's a bit of work to be done around kind of like maybe people can just learn more and tell their clients more. And I think there's a lot of work still to be done in that space.
Yeah, and it's a really promising statistic as well, because it's not just saying 80% of people are interested, it's 80% of people are doing something or already doing something. So, even more than that might be, if there was something that was presented to them that they could just say, oh, yes, that sounds good, then perhaps even more people would make those kind of choices as well. So I guess looking at that kind of appetite, as you said, and the barriers that are presented, why do you think kind of personalization and making it, making clients or encouraging clients to have a connection to where their money is going, why is that so important in impact investing?
Yeah, so personalization is really key, to be honest, in impact investing. And I think it's actually one of the reasons why there has been a lack of potential engagement or in the space. And I think if I asked you what sustainability or what impact means to you, you may have a completely different answer to me or to the next person that we were to ask. And so I think, and as I said, it's quite an emotionally charged area. People may have different reasons for wanting to be, their values are very emotional sometimes. So I think personalization is super key in terms of like providing relevant information. You know, you can give people different types of information and it may just not chime with them, and then they just switch off and they just think, I'm just not interested in that area. So that's why personalization is really, really key. Finding out what they actually kind of care about, what interests them, so that you can then show them relevant information. And that's one of the things, you know, with Etcho, we tried to sort of piece people together and show actual relevant information rather than it's like, here's the ESG performance. It's like trying to pull out what you might actually find interesting based on your values. But personalization is key across all investing, really, or at least giving an experience that or perception that is personalized. You know, the actual portfolio may not be fully personalized, but at least kind of giving that feel that you've thought about what they care about, and you've therefore been able to sort of tell a story or bring something out to them that's going to be interesting to them. So I think, you know, personalization has, you know, studies show that people kind of think it's the most important criteria when they're selecting investment products. Or I think, you know, with the rise of the sort of trading apps and stuff like that, people kind of feel like they're getting a personalized strategy. So I think it's really important to give people that feeling of personalization wherever you can. You know, as I said, the actual portfolio may not be completely customized to them. But if you can make it feel like it is, that's when you can get people really connected and engaged in their portfolios as well, which is really great, because what's also been proven, so Oxford Risk did a study on kind of aligning portfolios to values, and found that like 60% of millennials would invest more if they felt like their portfolio was better aligned to their values. So you do see actual material benefits of doing that and trying to bring out those stories within portfolios that are relevant to people. And I think the only way you can do that is really by understanding what they care about, not just, you know, from a financial point of view, but understanding which areas of sustainability are you interested in, and potentially why as well. You know, is that an emotional reason? Is that just, you know, really trying to dive into what people care about is really important, I think.
Absolutely. So kind of looking at that from a practical side of things then, if you are a planner who's going into this meeting and you really want to, you know that your client is interested in investing in this way and wants to look at impact investing, are there particular questions that you would encourage people to ask in order to work out like what that means? It's a particularly kind of complicated landscape with a lot in it. Is there a particular approach that you would suggest? Are there questions that perhaps lead to things that would be helpful to understand, you know, what areas to look at for that particular client?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this is one of the problems that we're really trying to solve with Etcho as well, to be honest. And I don't want to sort of sit here and talk too much about the product that we're building, but essentially I think it's a case, again, it's a case of really finding out what they cared about and potentially why. Is it an emotional sense that they care about it? You know, there may be a particular reason that they're really interested in sort of healthcare, or they're really interested in zero hunger, for example, and really trying to sort of dive into why that is. You know, with our tool, we've kind of got this profiling section at the start, which kind of dives into these kind of reasons, and in a really engaging way as well, trying not to switch people off with just a standard type form, trying to also tease out stories within that profiler that will kind of gain reactions of real life situations, and see how they might best kind of react to that, and just trying to bring in some sort of innovation into our profiling approach there. So I think, you know, we speak to a lot of financial advisors who are having these conversations, and I think one of the difficult things is a lot of people are obviously great at those relationships, but the difficult thing is then to actually take what the person's told them and find out the information from within the portfolio that's going to be interesting. So it's not just a case of find out what they care about, you've then actually got to follow up with it as well. And I think that's the slight difficulty. And also, I guess it's, again, coming back to the education and the awareness piece, sometimes people don't necessarily realize that their portfolios have any sort of, could have an impact on any of these things that they might care about. So it's about trying to thread through that story again throughout even those questions, and trying to explain to people that this is actually, because your portfolio could have an influence on some of these things or could negatively impact some of these things, and trying to kind of explain why you're asking them those questions, rather than just like, I thought you were just my financial advisor. I don't really see how this has any sort of impact on these areas. So I think that's hopefully that kind of answers the question. Yeah,
definitely. And you mentioned the word story kind of a couple of times there, and that's a huge part of the picture, isn't it? And working out how to convey these messages is, in essence, trying to work out how to craft these compelling narratives that will enable people to feel connected and enable people to understand how their money is making a difference and where it's going. How do you think, are there kind of techniques or tools or advice that you could give advisors and planners to help draw out stories that might resonate with clients and help them see the impact of their investments?
So, I mean, on the storytelling, so if you typically, or what sort of seems to be the kind of standard is, you get told that your fund or your portfolio's got, AAA rating from one of the large data providers. And that sort of, okay, this obviously sounds great. AAA must be good, right? Yeah. But you don't actually understand anything about it. And for some people, that's great. That's fine. That's maybe enough. They just want to make sure that they're sort of in a decently rated fund. But for others, that's not really enough. They want to feel that connection. And, we talked about earlier, really connecting people to their portfolios has large benefits. So it's really about kind of, how can you tell a story about what's actually going on? So can you pull out a couple of interesting companies? So going back to that point of finding out what they're interested in, let's say that they're really interested in, renewable energy or the future of food, zero hunger, that type of thing, rather than just telling them it's AAA. And this is something that Etcho's doing as well. It sort of pulls out the companies in the holdings that actually relate to what that person's interested in. So, okay, so they're interested in the future of food. Maybe there's a vertical farming company in the portfolio, and not just showing them his at harvest, let's say, in your portfolio, actually kind of putting out why that might be interesting. What about at harvest? What have they been doing in the last year, 2 years? What are their plans over the next couple of years? And why is vertical farming or indoor farming or, hydroponic farming, why is that going to be useful in our fight for, the future of food? And trying to kind of explain those stories and really relate it back to them in a digestible, of course, way, in a digital way that people are actually going to engage with. And I think that's one of the kind of ways that, we can help tell better stories, I think. And it comes back to that point of making sure that it's going to mean something to somebody, and they're not going to switch off because you've just told them a story about something that they just had no interest in. So it's really that you've got to have the whole loop. I think the whole circle's got to be there for people to engage with it.
Yeah. And I guess a key part of that is advisors themselves educating themselves on what that landscape looks like, because it's hard to tell a story about something in a specific way, like you mentioned, without understanding what that means yourself and what difference it makes and all the parts that fit together with that. How do you think if someone is really interested in educating themselves about that, really wanting to to move more into impact investing, how can someone start by understanding more about what this looks like in a way that they could then be able to tell impactful stories to their clients?
Yeah, so I think education is huge in the area, right? Financial advisors are experts at giving financial advice, and they're absolutely brilliant at doing that. But I think, and of course, there's some financial advisors who are also very, very clued up in the area and are really kind of leading the charge in the space. But I think it is a different subject. Sustainability is complex. It's not. It's very different to financial advice, and it's changing all the time. And it's there's all sorts of new regulations, new frameworks, all these sorts of things. It's actually working in the space. It's even difficult to keep up with it, let alone if you're sort of also trying to build your financial advice business and provide sound financial advice. So I think it's kind of accepting that actually there is a lot to learn, and finding tools and ways in which you can learn, and maybe alongside with your clients as well. I think that's kind of the best way to kind of approach this.
Yeah.
It's sort of, you see a lot of stuff in the space around sort of progress, not perfection. And I think that's really important, is to sort of have that honesty as well, that this is a journey. This isn't something that everybody's cracked yet. Everybody's kind of on this journey and learning together. And I think tools that can help sort of upskill advisors in this space will really build trust with your clients, that you're doing everything that you can to sort of learn more about it. And also, I think just sort of having tools that educate both yourself and the client really kind of give you that sort of next layer of conversation, particularly for the next gen that are coming through, that are asking more questions about this. If you can show initiative that you've sort of done some learning around it, then I think that'd be really impressive, to be honest, to the next gen coming through.
Absolutely. I kind of have a question that's maybe slightly more controversial, but kind of considering what's happening in the world and the crisis that we're in, and the ways that people can make a difference with their money, do you think advisors have some kind of duty to present these things to clients? Do you think it should be, that it's something that is put in front of different people, which of course that they can say no to, but do you think there is some kind of almost obligation looking at the state of the world at the moment?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I think we're obviously in a pretty, we're living in sort of crazy times, and the future of the planet is obviously in jeopardy. And I think everybody in every walk of life really has a duty to think about the way in which their profession is maybe influencing that, or could potentially positively influence that. And really, I think, again, it's about trying to change the narrative and trying to create some positivity, that actually, as financial advisors, got an amazing opportunity to create, or help to create, a brighter future. And I think if we can get more people engaged and more people motivated to have these conversations, I think the future could be really optimistic and could be brighter. And I think is it a duty? I would say so. I would say is a client really aware of what they're investing in if they don't understand the impact of their investments? I'm not sure. Do they really understand that? Is it really suitable for them if they are investing in a portfolio that's actually going to, I spoke to actually one financial advisor a few weeks ago who's really into this space, and he sort of said, I can't recommend a portfolio that's going to warm the world by 4 degrees, because 4 degrees would be a catastrophic scenario for everybody. So that can't be suitable for anybody, because the portfolio will essentially, almost be pointless because at 4 degrees, it's, So I think there is definitely a duty to at least have the conversation. And I think if somebody's really interested in it, I think, you have to, you definitely have to kind of be showing that you're doing as much as you can and being on that journey with them.
Yeah, and I guess storytelling kind of comes back into that side of things as well. If you can, I think sometimes it can be a little bit death by statistics in this kind of area where it's, it's degrees and percentages and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. But if you can kind of make it a little bit more relatable and personalized and have a story that makes someone think, actually, yes, that there is a reason for me to be doing this, and I think it's important. Storytelling seems to be important from that side of things too.
Yeah, 100%. I think it is all about storytelling, bringing stuff to life. I think what's happened in the space is there's been like a kind of boom of data, which is great. I mean, obviously the data is improving. It's that progress, not perfection. It's on a journey itself, the data. But what now needs to happen is a change from just here's the data. It's like, what does that mean? What on earth does that mean? There's X amount of carbon emissions. Like, okay, I have no idea what that means. So how can we kind of relate that to actual real world scenarios, real life scenarios? How can we sort of bring out information that's interesting? And I think, it's all about telling stories off the data now rather than just purely showing data. I think that's where the space is moving towards.
Yeah, and I guess looking more towards the future, the advancement in technology is what has kind of enabled something like Etcho to be able to be part of this narrative, part of this conversation. Where do you see that moving, and where do you think you fit into it as well?
Yeah, I think technology is super exciting in the space. I think in this specific space, I think what we'll see more of is, I guess, that sort of hyper-personalized portfolios. I think that's really exciting to see. I think data technology obviously helps fuel better data. I think we'll see improvements of that over time. The AI machine learning, that's kind of always improving, which is obviously exciting to see. I think we'll see a lot of stuff around biodiversity. So the Task Force for Nature-related Financial Disclosures is sort of growing as well, which is exciting. I think we'll see a lot of kind of work done in that space because biodiversity has been proven to be sort of such a huge driver towards climate change. So I think we'll see a lot of change in this space. I think it's still a young space. It's evolving so much. And I think, I'm really excited to see where it's going, because I know there's a lot of people working very hard to try and make it as good as it can be, really.
Definitely. And so for people who are watching this and, wanting to learn more about where it's moving as well as, where it's at, are there specific areas that you would encourage people to pay attention to and educate themselves in?
So specific areas that I would sort of pay attention to are, I guess, biodiversity, keep an eye on that, how that's going. I think I mentioned earlier Project Drawdown. I think that's a really, really exciting organization who's, again, trying to change the narrative on climate change and trying to sort of change it from despair to hope, and just trying really to bring out, I guess, motivate people into feeling like we can pull ourselves out of this. It's not too late. So there's a book that they've got, and there's sort of online resource, which is just, I find it really, really inspiring whenever I go on there. So do encourage people to check it out. And so that's kind of what I'd say in that space.
Absolutely. Right. So moving on, we have a couple of questions in our podcast that we like to ask everybody. And that first question is, we like to ask guests for a book that has helped them in their career. So do you have a book that has done that for you?
A book that has done that for me. So I mentioned that Project Drawdown book. I would definitely get that. But there's, I'm just trying to think, there's one by Alice Ross, Investing to Save the Planet. That's a really good sort of book, which talks about this space, and it's sort of quite relatable, quite a nice read. And that's definitely a book that sort of ignites some motivation within you. So I'd recommend reading that. It's slightly different to changing the narrative, but The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells is pretty harrowing read, to be honest. But it on the flip side of Project Drawdown, it's definitely kind of makes you think. And I'm trying to think if there's any others. There's one that I'm reading at the moment called It's Not Too Late. I can't actually remember the name of the author, but again, that's all about the sort of positivity around climate change. So, I think those books are what I'd recommend.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm kind of hearing from you as well in this whole conversation is it's a balance between understanding the gravity of the situation and how important it is to act now, because in some ways we're already too late. Well, in a lot of ways we're already too late, and we should have done things ages ago, and it's not looking good. However, let's not just focus on that, because there are things we can do to turn the tide. There are things that, individuals can be doing to make sure that the future doesn't end up as awful as it could potentially be. And there are positive stories.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we've got one chance every day that we don't act as a further day of it potentially getting worse. So I think, we have to keep a layer of positivity. There's so much doom and gloom out there. There's, and rightly so, probably. But I think there is a balance to be had around, let's kind of try to think of what we can do that's going to be positive. And I think trying to give people that sort of empowerment that actually, as financial advisors, there is an opportunity to sort of play your part in creating that future. And I think that comes in getting to understand people's values. As I said at the beginning, people do care about this. A lot of people are making lifestyle changes. So why not their finances? Why not? And why not sort of tell them, or if they are interested, give them tools that help them to really understand it, and we can start sort of moving more money into a more sustainable future, which is certainly exciting. I think certainly exciting.
Exactly. And I think exciting is a great word, because if you do kind of marry up all these things of making it really personalized for people, if they're seeing a story that is tangible, and they can actually track what's happening, why it's happening, and their role to play in it, then ultimately, it's a win-win-win-win-win situation where, we're shifting the dial towards like making a real difference. And hopefully that will just continue to grow and snowball into a better position for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Okay, so final question for you. What are you most excited to see in the world of finance in the next 10 years?
I think what I'm most excited to see is like hyper-personalized portfolios that basically really reflect people's values and sort of seamlessly your values are sort of seamlessly connected within your sort of investment portfolio. I think that's something that I would be really, really excited to see. And, ultimately, I guess with Etcho, hopefully we can play our part in making that achievable and making that happen. I think that's kind of what I'm what I'm most excited by. But there's loads of stuff going on, which is super exciting. But I think that's the one thing that I'd love to see.
I guess the nature of, you know, working in the space that you're in, combining kind of tech with all of the with finance, with like impact, it's just changing all the time, and the ability of what you can do and how you can do it is getting better and better. So it's going to be an interesting one to track actually over the next decade, to see where it goes, what happens, and what we can do with it all.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, you know, I'd love to, you know, if there's any advisors listening to this, I'd love to sort of have a chat, hear what you're doing with the space. You know, it's always really interesting to hear from people around what they're doing. And I know so many people are doing as much as they can to try and sort of engage their clients and educate themselves and all sorts. So, please do get in touch. Always love to chat with people, whether you're sort of working towards it or just starting your journey. We're always here to have a chat.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me this morning, Charlie. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Amelia. We'll chat again soon. Thanks so much.